Welcome back to the Financial Freedom Show with Chase Lawson. My name is Chase Lawson. I am a personal finance enthusiast and the author of Financial Freedom, Breaking the Chains to Independence and Creating Massive Wealth. The goal with each episode of this show is to take a different personal finance topic and make it simple for you to understand and apply in your own life. We've got a fantastic episode lined up today. It's a bit of a complex topic, but nevertheless a super important one, so be sure to pay close attention and if needed, listen through this episode a couple of times. After all, it could have some major implications on your life. I'm always trying to educate myself on all things finance. Yes, I do know a lot when it comes to personal finance, but I don't know everything. And no matter how much I learn, I probably won't ever know everything there is to know. However, that's why it's so important to just take time to learn each day. As Harry Stout advised in our episode on 4 mistakes people make when it comes to finance, spend just 2 hours a week learning about personal finance and you'll be way ahead of the game and you'll set yourself up for success. This topic I'm covering today is one that I just recently educated myself on, which is the power of an HSA. Healthcare can be pretty confusing in America. After all, you may have various insurance plans to choose from, different deductibles, co-pays or co-insurance, in-network versus out-of-network, different categories of expenses with different coverage levels, and more. Despite it being confusing, it is super important to know about it. And I've heard the advice before about how investing in an HSA could be a good strategy, but I honestly never really paid a whole lot of attention to it until recently. Like many of you listening, I just went through open enrollment for 2021 benefits through my employer. This year, I had an added factor to consider in that I got married this year, so I had to weigh out whether or not to add my wife to my plan, join hers, and so on. I really took the time to understand the different plans and their benefits and drawbacks, and today's episode deals with an HSA and some of the pros and cons to consider with one. To sum up this video and what we'll touch on shortly, an HSA is essentially like an IRA, but possibly even better. So first of all, what even is an HSA? An HSA is a health savings account. As the name implies, it is a savings account geared towards using for medical expenses. HSAs are also tax-advantaged accounts, which we'll discuss a little later on. So who is eligible for an HSA? Well, to qualify for an HSA, you must be at least 18 years old, have a high deductible health plan, may not be covered under a non-high deductible health plan, cannot be enrolled in Medicare, and may not be claimed as a dependent on another individual's tax return. The key element there to point out is that you must have a high deductible health plan. A deductible on insurance, for those who may be unaware, is the amount paid out of pocket by the policyholder, or you, each year before the insurance provider pays any expenses. For example, if you incur $2,000 in medical expenses in 1 year, but your deductible is $500, you'll typically be responsible for the first $500, and then your insurance will pay a certain percentage of every dollar after the first $500, or in this case, on the remaining $1,500 in expenses. For 2020, a high deductible health plan must have a deductible of at least $1,400 for self-only coverage or $2,800 for family coverage. So why would somebody want to have a higher deductible then if they are responsible for that full amount? Well, the higher your deductible, the cheaper your premiums. And as with all things personal finance, this is personal. If you're young and healthy, you might not even come close to hitting your deductible. However, as you age and your health declines, you may have more medical expenses to account for. Or if you anticipate having high medical expenses in the near future, whether you plan to have a baby or need surgery or whatever the case may be, then it may make more sense to have a lower deductible plan. Only you can make that determination for yourself, so definitely sit down and run some numbers when deciding what plan is best for you. For the past couple of years, I've only had about $200 per year in out-of-pocket medical expenses, so for me, I wouldn't even meet the deductible on the lower deductible plans, so it makes sense for me to have a high deductible health plan. You can always switch to a low deductible plan as needed, you just won't be able to contribute any money to an HSA while on a low deductible health plan. For example, say you or your significant other get pregnant in July. Well, it may make sense for you to have a low deductible health plan for the next calendar year since you'll have higher medical expenses associated with having a baby. Okay, so enough about high deductible health plans. The purpose of this video is to discuss HSAs and the benefits they offer. There are 7 primary benefits that I will discuss when it comes to HSAs. Benefit number 1, HSA money is yours forever. Unlike flexible spending accounts or FSAs, which are use it or lose it accounts, meaning that if you don't use the money by year end or a short period after, they're gone. The money in HSA stays with you forever until you spend it, even if you leave your current job or if you lose your job. You own the account, not your employer. Benefit number 2, triple tax advantage. HSAs are similar to traditional 401ks or IRAs when it comes to their tax incentives. And according to Michael Kitces, Director of Financial Planning at Pinnacle Advisory Group, HSAs are the most tax-preferred account available, and using one to save for retirement medical expenses is a better strategy than using retirement accounts. So how does the triple tax advantage work? For one, you can either contribute directly from your paycheck, pre-tax, or from your own funds, in which case those funds are tax deductible even if you don't itemize your expenses. This will allow you to lower your federal and state income tax liability, and these funds are not subject to FICA taxes. Many employers will also contribute on their employees' behalf to these plans, and any contributions that are made by employers are not treated as taxable income to the employee. The second tax advantage is that these funds can then grow tax-free. Any interest, dividends, or gains on this money are non-taxable. Finally, the third tax advantage is that withdrawals made for qualified medical expenses are tax-free. As I mentioned before, HSAs may be better than IRAs, and this is one reason why. Unlike with a traditional 401k or IRA, in which you're taxed when you withdraw the funds, an HSA has no tax liability whatsoever if those funds are used for medical expenses. If this money was taxed and you were in a 20% tax bracket, you'd have to earn $10,000 to pay for $8,000 in medical expenses, whereas with an HSA, you would only need $8,000 in tax-free money. Benefit number 3, no required minimum distributions. Unlike 401ks and IRAs, you're not required to begin withdrawing funds at a certain age, and you are not required to pull out any amount. You can leave money in the account untouched for as long as you like, letting it grow tax-free. Benefit number 4, no income limits. Regardless if you make $10,000 a year or $10 million a year, you can contribute up to the maximum per year into your HSA, and your entire contribution is tax deductible. You can also contribute in years in which you earn no income or if you are self-employed. For 2020, this means you can contribute up to $3,550 for self-only coverage or $7,100 for family coverage, including any employer contributions. If you're 55 or older, you can contribute an extra $1,000 on top of that, as can your spouse if he or she is 55 or older. Benefit number 5. You can use the money in your HSA to reimburse yourself for any out-of-pocket medical expenses. If you incur medical expenses after creating your HSA that you pay with non-HSA dollars, either due to depleting your HSA funds or due to choosing to not use your HSA funds, as long as you save your receipts, you can then reimburse yourself for those expenses at any time with the funds in your HSA. We'll touch more on this shortly as to why you might choose to do this. Benefit number 6, you can invest the money in your HSA. Usually your HSA starts as a cash account, which may earn a minuscule amount of interest like a savings account. But once you reach a certain balance, usually around $2,000, you can change your HSA into an investment account, which functions a lot like an IRA. For example, you may be able to invest this money into high-quality, low-cost Vanguard or Fidelity funds, which will then grow with the broader market. Benefit number 7, you can access this money at any time. Once again, this account is geared towards medical expenses, and these funds can be used tax-free to pay for any medical expenses you incur. However, you can also use the funds for another purpose, in which case they will be taxable. So if you do need to access the funds prior to age 65 for non-qualified medical expenses, you will owe a 20% penalty though, as well as taxes on the distributions. However, after age 65, you won't owe a penalty on those funds, but you will still be taxed on any distributions that are not used for qualified medical expenses, much like you would with an IRA or 401k, But again, you won't be charged taxes if you use the money for qualified medical expenses. So why so much talk about investing in an HSA? Why is this so important? Well, according to a recent Fidelity Retirement Healthcare Cost Survey, it is estimated that the cost of healthcare through retirement for a couple is $280,000, not including the cost of long-term care. That's a lot of money to account for, and if you can use an HSA and not owe taxes on any of that money used for those expenses, you'll end up saving quite a substantial sum of money. With an HSA, if you invest those dollars, it'll really add up over time through compound returns as any other investment would. Doing the math, if you and your spouse each contribute $3,550 per year, or the current maximum annual contribution, at the end of each year into your HSA, after 30 years of 7% return, you'll have contributed $213,000, but your HSA will be worth $670,671.58, or over $450,000 in growth, which will take care of any healthcare expenses you have in retirement. With such powerful benefits with an HSA, it truly is something to consider utilizing if it makes sense financially. And as I mentioned before with Benefit 5, you may decide to pay all of your healthcare expenses fully out of pocket and not even touch your HSA dollars until retirement. If you can swing this, that could be a smart move, as the more you leave invested for longer, the more your account will grow. However, don't hoard money in your HSA if you don't have the savings to pay for your current healthcare costs. But if you're financially able to use post-tax dollars for current healthcare costs while saving pre-tax HSA dollars for later, you'll probably be glad you did. Just remember to save your itemized receipts for when you do need to reimburse yourself down the road. So what are the current statistics around HSAs? Well, currently, these types of health plans are offered by about 43% of employers. And according to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, or EBRI, those with an HSA had an average balance of only $2,922 in 2016. Only 6% of HSAs were in investment accounts, and EBRI found that virtually no one contributes the maximum, and nearly everyone takes current distributions to pay for medical expenses. I believe the reason for this is that people don't really know what exactly an HSA is and the power there is in one. Being fully transparent, I didn't even really understand it until I took the time recently to learn about it. It's definitely something I will add to my tax planning and investing strategy moving forward. If you do the things that others are not doing, you're going to set yourself up well. Just remember, don't leave the money sitting idle in a savings account. Try to get your HSA up to the minimum needed to turn it into an investment account, and then start investing dollars and contributing what you can each year up to the maximum. Healthcare costs continue to rise at absurd, astronomical rates. According to Megan Gorman, managing partner at Checkers Financial Management, inflation on healthcare costs is almost 70% higher than the normal consumer price index. Utilizing an HSA can help counteract that. You can use your HSA to pay for everything from office visits to health insurance deductibles, dental expenses, vision care, prescription drugs, Medicare premiums, a portion of the premiums for a tax-qualified long-term care policy, hearing aids, hospital and physical therapy bills, wheelchairs and walkers, x-rays, in-home nursing care, retirement community fees for lifetime care, long-term care services, nursing home fees, and meals and lodging that are necessary while obtaining medical care away from home. You can also use these funds if you need to make modifications to your home to make it easier to use as you age, such as building ramps or handrails. HSAs are the most cost-effective way to pay for these expenses, as they provide investors the highest after-tax value. So there we have it. Hopefully that all made sense for you. I know healthcare is a pretty complex topic, and there's a lot of elements and nuances to it. But hopefully now you realize the power there is in an HSA. It's just another way to help plan for your future and ensure that you're well taken care of for years to come. If you liked this episode or got value out of it, please go ahead and like this or leave a review wherever you're listening. Feel free to drop a comment with any questions or comments you have as well. And if you've not yet subscribed, please take 2 seconds to do so that you don't miss any future content like this. Until next time, thank you all, stay safe, and go get 'em.